So we've got a fireside chat, so something a little different. This is about cookies and NFTs, the keys to your future digital identity. We've got Shira Stember and Matt Blumenfeld. Come on up. Come on up, have a seat.
All right, well, we're going to kick this off with just a little bit of introduction here, just so you get a taste of who we are. So I'm Matt Blumenfeld. I drive our Web3 digital asset strategy at PwC. We're helping educate Web2 traditional finance on what digital assets are, NFTs included in that, and how it's going to disrupt their businesses, and then help them come up with strategy and operationalize that. And Shira, I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself, and then we'll kick it off here.
Sure. Hey. I'm Shira Stember. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Snickerdoodle Labs. We're building tools and resources for businesses to better understand their customers, their Web3 customers. We're building a data wallet for individuals to be able to capture, store, own, and monetize their data, and ultimately the aggregation of all of that data to be able to best form their digital identity. My responsibilities at Snickerdoodle span across a lot of different functions, but ultimately I think a lot about how we're engaging internally as a team, really wanting to focus on working well together, and then also how we're engaging everybody else around us, so how we're presenting our products, how we're working with our investors, and how we're just building a better future for everybody to have a better experience. So nice to see everyone.
And obviously, Web3 has a lot of promises around ownership and bringing the ownership back to the people, and realigning and reallocating the incentives across the value chain and the stakeholders involved. Without getting technical, because I know that can be very easy to do in this space, tell us a little bit about what Snickerdoodle is doing with the NFT and how it's changing the data game, which I think has been quoted as being a $1 trillion industry in the near future here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of interactions that we have now in Web 2 that are suboptimal. And the opportunity to realign incentives for all stakeholders across our digital experiences, and to ultimately empower the individual to have more control and to be able to share in the value generated from their data is really, I think, what gets me really excited about what we're building and what all of you are building and supporting and interested in, I'm assuming, is that it just becomes a better way of operating. So there's a totally optimistic view of what the world could be, our digital world could be, and I think that, to me, being able to be part of a team that's building the infrastructure, making our way towards that, delivering on that promise and working towards Web3 is what is really exciting. I mean, the data aspect is that's what is the data that you're creating based on your likes and your experiences and the way you're interacting and navigating through the internet now. That really starts to form what your digital identity is. And you should be able to control that and understand where it's being used and when, and to be able to receive value based on that data if you were to choose to share it. And so that's a lot of what we're building at Snickerdoodle.
Yeah, and obviously data privacy has been a topic for much debate, and you've seen a lot of those challenges in the Web 2 world, and hopefully Web 3 will sort of change that. I know we're exiting a period where everyone's focusing on the financials of digital assets, NFTs, right? We've seen tremendous growth in the industry, and you've seen the market cap of these things go sky high, and we're in a bit of a rough patch here. But it gives us a time to focus on the innovation, and I know you guys have a very ambitious roadmap ahead of the different things that you're going to bring to the market here. Can you talk a little bit about how that's what you just described to us, what Snickerdoodle is doing, and what the future looks like? Are there any specific industries you're looking at today? And we'll talk more about some in the future, but really bringing the adoption to the people.
Yeah, totally. So this is a very ambitious project. It's going to take us a long time to really deliver on what our vision is. And in terms of where we are now, so we're currently pre-product. We will have a MVP beta launch in Q3 of this year, and that really is going to be focused on Web3 gaming and the Web3 customers of those games. As we start to think down the road, it will then expand into various verticals, but a lot of it has to start with kind of like, we just need to get our product out. We need to get into this really great like customer feedback loop, see how it's working, see what people like, what they don't like, and ultimately start to build products that people love and that are delivering value to businesses, and to also be on an education campaign to allow individuals to best understand their opportunities and what they can do with their own data. So there's a lot of work ahead of us, but I think that there's many different industry verticals that we can expand into, and there's applications across marketing, advertising, loyalty, community engagement, customer engagement, but we're starting with Web3 gaming.
Yeah, and I can tell you based on the conversations that we have on a daily basis that gaming is certainly seen as one of the ways to bring more people into the space. In a lot of the conversations we have with brands, and you and I discussed this prior to this, but we spend a lot of time educating, right? Because it's not a singular topic. There's a lot of different components to Web3 and digital assets, NFTs, that people haven't really thought about. So spend a lot of time educating, and there's obviously challenges involved in this. Mainly around the education, where senior executives just they understand that the topic is huge. They understand the advent, the positive perspectives of it, but they don't really understand how it's used to engage people. And I think Snickerdoodle is doing something that will engage people in a new way, given that it's realigning the incentives and whatnot. Some of the other challenges I think that people see is, and again, we talked about this with the financial aspect. Once you can look past that and look at the true innovation and what it's going to bring and enable people to do in the future, I think, it goes a long way there.
Yeah, just really quickly on that. So, I believe in what we're building, and I am super excited about it, and I think it's really awesome, and it's fully aligned with kind of like my own personal values. But there's so many unknowns, but directionally I feel really comfortable and really excited about where we're heading. I think the challenge from the education standpoint is there's also a misperception that it's really focused around investment or from a financial side, and I really think of it even now that like when I'm interested in various NFT projects, my interest is really around what's the community that they're building, how are they speaking to each other, kind of like where can I add value, as opposed to where can I receive some sort of financial gain by investing in somewhere. It's much more community-based and engagement-based for me. And so I think even starting to change the language towards better understanding kind of how the technology can be used beyond the financials and the investment, that still is like hard to do. And that coupled with like trying to use actual words that people outside of this hotel and industry understand, and to move away from jargon and to allow more people to be able to really latch on to an understanding of what could be, that's also really hard. Plus the user experience now is really hard and it's stressful. And even now when I'm clicking and signing things, I wish I had a better understanding of what all of that was. And so for somebody who is doing it for the first time, those are a lot of hurdles for us to get over. But one step at a time, and I think just being aware of it is kind of like the first step.
Yeah, being able to simplify things for non-Web3 users is important, and I think you actually hit on it, right? The UI, the UX is the one thing that's holding Web3 back right now. I think we'll get to a point where people won't know that they're using this technology, and that's when we really see mass adoption come into play, when the technology just enables things to happen. I had a question for you around sort of advertising, right? It's a huge revenue source for a lot of these Web2 traditional companies. What would you say to them about what's going to happen in the future here. You know, some of them may be scared of these changing business models. A lot of them aren't aware, based on the conversations we've had with folks, about where this is heading. What would you say to them? Because again, you're not trying to take everything away from them. You're trying to just realign the incentives here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like advertising has, it almost needs a rebrand, because really the intention of the advertising is to make people aware of what you're doing. And what you're trying to do is further engage whomever your customer is. And I think the ethos of Web3 is that you're also trying to like add value and contribute to others. And so I think just being able to like shift that mindset kind of in some like larger brands and organizations or legacy organizations, that's like a big shift in how they think about advertising, but a huge opportunity, because their customers want to have better relationships. And I think more engaged customers translates into better business outcomes for a number of reasons, whether they're engaging with additional products or just deepening their level of engagement with your one product. And so that's a huge opportunity, but there's also the privacy component. There's a huge focus and there's regulation around maintaining privacy as it relates to the data that businesses and enterprises own or store. And in this situation, individuals are owning their data. They're providing consent for sharing their data, but that data is aggregated, it's pooled, it's not able to track back to the individual, and it's not owned by businesses and enterprises. So like an opportunity for businesses and enterprises that they can adhere to privacy standards by kind of operating in this space. And I don't think that that has been realized yet. I mean, we're still kind of like building the infrastructure for it, but that's like a huge selling point to not have that responsibility. And so that's super exciting.
Yeah, I know. I couldn't agree more. I think we're going to move away from this transactional relationship between a company and a consumer. We're going to move more towards a collaboration. This is something that we talk about a lot. We just released a strategy framework on how brands can interact in this space, and it's not all about monetization first. It's about building that relationship, building that engagement first, and then you can monetize on the back end, but you're monetizing together rather than just looking at a customer from a transaction standpoint. So obviously, we'll turn this to a little bit of fun here. How did you get involved in the NFT space? Step away from the data for a second and snickerdoodle, but how did you first get involved in NFTs?
So I was introduced to Snickerdoodle through one of Snickerdoodle's advisors. His name's Mike Tedesco. I had worked with him on projects when I was at Citi, and he was like, I think you're really you should check this out. You'll be into it. And I was like, that was like my rabbit hole moment. But in terms of NFTs, I think it was over Thanksgiving. My kids were still in school. Our office was closed, and I was like deep into like Solana NFTs, and it was just really cool. I mean, the art's cool, but I was really just kind of into the different communities. And most recently, I've been like really into boys clubs. So I don't know if there's any boys in the audience. Okay, no. Okay, everybody should check it out. It's really awesome. And they do like a really great like Kardashian analogy to Web3 highlight reel. You should check it out.
And I know we're at time here, so I don't want to go too deep into anything else. But it was great chatting with you about what Snickerdoodle is doing and how it's going to change the game of data as we move forward here from a privacy perspective.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, everyone.